One thing that's going to be hard about going back to real work is that I won't get to wear shorts and a t-shirt every single day.
That's rough.
That's my outfit every day anyhow.
Ah,
Are we ready, Liz?
call for desperate measures.
She was going to wait for a text back from Diego. There's a lot less laundry, right? When you're just wearing shorts and t-shirts.
Absolutely.
Okay. All right, we're on. Amy, do you want to go ahead and get started? Oh, Amy, we can't quite hear you. Sorry, we should have checked that before. If we need to, we can have Ron run it because I think his speaker is working.
Yeah, but my video is not so.
Hello, everyone.
Is that Erwin?
Yep, that's me. Hi.
Hi.
Sorry, I'm late.
No problem. We're working on Amy's. You need some help, Amy? I can have our IT guy call you.
No, it's saying you're not connected to audio, and when I go to connect,
It's working. It's just very, very low volume. So maybe just speak up and then maybe it'll work.
let me look at my volume.
That's working.
It's working now?
Yeah, much better.
Okay. Okay. Okay, calling the meeting to order. And I thought what we would do, since we have a couple of new members, is go around and introduce ourselves. And I think probably the best way to do this is I'll call people's names so we don't talk over each other. So Ron, do you want to start by introducing yourself? Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Did you hear me?
For some
Ron,
reason, yeah, for some reason it muted itself. I don't understand that. My name's Ron Ford.
I'm sorry, go ahead. Janie's having troubles getting audio too. She just put in the chat.
I'm not sure. Amy, Janie, are you there?
Maybe tell her to get out and try again. I think that helps.
Yeah, Janie, can you maybe drop off the meeting and then come back on again?
I wonder if she doesn't have anything probably. We might have to type it.
There's also a dial-in number that you can use. I believe that was on the meeting invitation. We can give you the number if you need.
Maybe put it in the chat. She's doing it in the chat.
Yeah, I don't think she can hear anything we're saying.
I just added it to chat. I did it privately though.
Okay, great.
What's the phone number, the main number to call into? Yeah, if you can just add it to the chat.
Okay, Ron, can you hear us?
I can. Can you hear me?
Yes. Do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself?
Okay. My name's Ron Swartzwalder. I've been in water treatment for 50 years now. I started many years ago in the city of Cleveland and finally retired from there a few years ago. Came out to New Mexico to do some training for the small systems, and I'm fully retired and enjoying life, and I'm in t-shirts and shorts every day.
Great, thank you. Erwin, how about you?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I'm Erwin Malis. I'm a hydrogeologist with John Shoemaker and Associates here in Albuquerque. We work on private, public, all sorts of projects, water in the southwestern. I've been doing this for 13 years. I have a PhD from the University of Maine, and I'm a registered geologist in California and Idaho.
Robert? Robert, I think you're muted.
Seriously, how did that happen? I'm rarely muted. So Robert Fowley from CDM Smith, been an engineer for 33 years, lived and worked all over the country, but I'm a New Mexico native and came back about 14 years ago. And I run CDM Smith's Albuquerque and El Paso offices.
Thank you. Melissa?
Hi, everybody. I'm Melissa Armijo. I'm probably the only person on the board who has no background in engineering, water, or anything like that. I am your community outreach type person, and I live in the South Valley, and I thought the South Valley needed a voice on this committee. So I was happy to join. I've been in the committee about 3 years now.
Thank you, Melissa.
Hey, just a side note on the protocol for this. If you guys could mute your own lines in between when you're not talking, go ahead and mute yourself and then unmute yourself when you're not. That'll help with some background noise. Thanks.
Tess?
Hi, my name's Tess Hool. I'm a landscape designer at MRWM Landscape Architects. I've been there for about 2 years now. I did some residential design before that, and I was also a middle school math teacher for almost 10 years. And I have a special interest in stormwater management, which is what led me to learn about the TCAC and is how I practice water management professionally.
Thank you. Paul? Paul, you're muted.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, I see. Okay, hey, perfect. Anyway, no, so I'm one of the new kids. I'm really pleased to be part of this group. As I read through all the other resumes here, it's pretty impressive. August group. As for me, I was actually born in Washington, D.C., which is not one of the United States. I spent some formative years in Delaware, which most people don't know as a state. Now I find myself here in New Mexico, which most people think you need a visa to come to. So, but anyway, I've been doing a bunch of general engineering, including some very specific with water systems. I got a taste of flood issues in Ruidoso and was involved with the Eastern New Mexico Water Project for a few years. So that's kind of my background. It's a little bit scattershot, but hopefully I can bring something to the group.
Thank you. And last but not least, Deborah.
Thank you, Amy. I am new as well. This is my first meeting, and I'm really excited to be on TCAC and to work with each of you. I'm also an engineer, civil but not civilized, I generally say. But I was glad to get on today. It actually forced me to get something besides t-shirt and shorts on. So I have been in consulting for, I won't disclose exactly how long. It's halfway between Robert and Ron. So I'll let you guys figure it out in consulting engineering. and gravitated towards project management. You might see in my resume or my bio, I was really, one of my best projects was working on the San Juan Chama drinking water project from 2004 to 2008 as a consultant. And I managed the section of pipeline that came from the water treatment plant through the North Valley and crossed the Rio Grande over and continued on Sequoia over to the West Side Golf Course. And that was one of the most fun projects that I ever managed in my career. So I'm excited to be part of this team and look forward to seeing each of you in person someday.
Great, thank you. And Janie, it looks like you are on one way or the other.
I finally am. I'm on and I have audio.
All right. You want to introduce yourself?
Sure. I'm Janie Shermack. I'm a professor of economics at UNM. I deal a lot in areas of energy and water, and that includes not only efficient use of energy and things like that, but also consumer response and consumer demand for water is a big area of what I spend my time in. Welcome, everybody who's new.
Thank you. And I'm Amy Miller. I'm the chair of the committee this year. I have my own consulting firm. The bulk of my work is in energy and environmental areas, though not all, and mostly in public policy issues. So did everyone have a chance to look at the action summary from our March meeting? I saw one item to change.
Oh, hey, you know what? We need to do the approval of the agenda first.
Oh, I'm sorry. I apologize. I'm looking right at yes. So can has everyone had a chance to look at the agenda? And does someone want to make a motion to approve the agenda?
This is Ron, so move.
I second Irwin.
Ron and Erwin, thank you. Okay, now on to the March action summary. Liz, on item number 1, I was the one that called the meeting to order because I was at the last meeting. It was the February meeting I wasn't at.
Good chair. Good call. That was a carryover.
That's okay. Anything else that anyone sees to make a change? Do I hear a motion to approve the action summary from the March meeting with the one revision?
I make a motion.
Was
So who was the first on that?
That was Robert.
Robert was number 1.
Melissa, did you?
Yes, I second.
Thank you.
Okay, now we are moving on to the presentation of the FY21 proposed operating budget. Are you going to bring those slides up on the call or the video or?
Hello, everyone. I'm Stan Allred. I'm the Chief Financial Officer. It's like a little family. I've worked with spouses.
Hey, Stan.
I worked with Pam. I've worked with Mark. May he rest in peace. I'll go and get started. A lot of you guys are new. This could be very dry or very invigorating. At any point in time, you can ask any questions. And I'll go ahead and just get started. And I'm going to kind of go off the slides a little bit based on a little bit of input I have. And I'm just going to explain a couple things, especially the process, some of the new people. just real quick before I start doing that, I'm just going to talk real quickly about the basic accounting setup. We have 5 funds that we manage, and this is all based upon governmental accounting. We have a Fund 21, which is we call the general fund. That's our general operating budget. So when we talk about revenue and operating expenses, it's those things that revolve in that fund. The next 3 funds are capital implementation project funds. To kind of go back real quick on the general fund, the operating fund, that gets appropriated. So an appropriation basically is it's the authority from the board for us to spend. So we get an appropriation level in different categories, and that gives us the approval to spend that much in those categories in a particular year. Every year we have to get an appropriation to spend. So at the end of that year, those appropriations no longer exist. And then we go and do a budget. The board approves the next year's budget, which they're getting ready to do here, and it will approve our expenditure levels for the next fiscal year. One of the things we're different than most government entities is that we're allowed to, or we're held accountable to the state of New Mexico at the fund level. Many entities like the city of Albuquerque are held at different program levels, but we're held at the fund level. The next 3 are CIP. CIP funds, we do an appropriation, but we reappropriate every year all the items that we did not spend. So what that means is, and most of your engineers, is that on any given time, most projects will take more than 1 year to complete. It'll take multiple years. So the CIP funds, they live in multiple years. And we do that to some degree is that we have to have an appropriation level to allow us to go out and do a contract with somebody to do a project. And that has to be based upon the level that we're allowed to spend. If we don't have that level to spend and approved upon, then I can't do a contract for the full amount. So CIP, at the end of each year, what we haven't spent is still approved to spend in future years. So just because we didn't spend at a certain level for each in particular year, these projects live and breathe forever. So just saying that is we may appropriate $60 million in a year to spend in CIP. We may only spend $40 million in that year. Doesn't mean that 20 million of the projects just now went away. They get carried over to the next fiscal year. We add another 60 million on top of that, then we have 80 million. So it may take years as you get through it. So some people believe we're not spending the money, we're spending it. It's just that they have huge balances in these accounts. They live over, these accounts probably well over $100 million. And then we're going to add another $71 million to these accounts into the next fiscal year. The last fund, our debt service fund. That fund basically is where we pay for all our debt payments. It's also where we generate revenue from utility expansion charges, connections to our system. We'll talk a little bit about later. Another revenue when we charge for a new connection is the water resource charge. That's to pay for Water 2120. So for those future projects, there's also the revenue sources transfer from the general fund. So we transfer money from that fund into the debt service fund to pay for our debt payments. We also transfer money from Fund 21 into Fund 27, 28, 29 to pay for those projects with operating cash, part of our rate revenue. We also borrow money, and when we borrow the money, the money we get in from those bond proceeds is revenue, and they go into those accounts. And the expenditure for those accounts sit in the debt service fund, and we move those and pay for those out of money comes from Fund 20. Okay, and in each one of those funds, we have programs which are groups of divisions, which, for instance, we have our field division. So this, the guys that work on our crews does all the field work and all the pipes underground, water and sewer both. We have a plant division that does the water reclamation or the sewer plant, also our water treatment plant and all our wells across the city. Another division would be IT. A division is engineering and planning, where we do a lot of our CIP projects. We have customer services as a division, finance a division, etc. And then when we say in a division, group of departments, those are just basically expenditure centers, wages, benefits, operating expenses, and those type of things kind of fall into that. Oh, next. So just to kind of, before I get into this, just a quick overview. So the budget process happens for the next fiscal year. We start the budget probably in January of each year. We have a call out to our divisions. We tell them and ask them what they need for the next year. And they kind of start developing that. We look at what the state may make any changes to our retirement packages. We reach out to our vendors that do our healthcare, see if there's any increases with that. When we built all that stuff in, we try to project if we need a rate increase or not, project what our revenue might be, and then if that revenue is sufficient, and if it's not sufficient, then we have a rate increase and those types of things. So we kind of start that process. Also during that time frame, we start the process of doing goals and objectives. And those goals and objectives are basically an idea of what we have to do the next year. Based on those goals and objectives, we do things such as called issue papers. So if something's not normally been appropriated in a group, we do what we call an issue paper. And each one of those issue papers has to be in response to a goal or objective, be approved. So it would be, for instance, we had an objective to do clean city and do some clean city. And then to be able to accomplish that objective, we'd have to hire 2 new full-time equivalents or 2 new people to do that job. We would generate an issue paper saying we need 2 new positions that's never been appropriated before. So we need to add 2 positions. And based upon that, we're doing that because we have this objective that says we want to do that for the public. So we kind of go through that. I do what's called a finance plan. The finance plan is a 10-year plan. I do it every year. Again, the key word in this to memorize is plan. It is just a plan. I do appropriate and I do a revenue on that, but it's a plan. It's a projection of what I think we're going to make and what we're going to spend in a year. So I do that every year. We do a 45-year plan for Water 2120. So we look at all those projects in Water 2120 that we're going to have to do in the next 100 years. And it's in this 45-year plan. And in that plan, I also try to decide when and if we need rate increases to do some of that work. But also, we're going to be paying off debt. As we pay off debt, we generate more revenue because we don't have that expense anymore. I can use that revenue to do some Water 2120 stuff. So all those types of things are looked at in the finance plan. We do a decade plan for CIP, and the decade plan, that is done every 2 years. And why we do that, again, remember, the key word in that is plan. So we plan and project what we think we need to spend on capital based on the levels that I say in our budget we can spend. So we have a basic program component that we do every year, and we borrow every 2 years for that program, and then we move and transfer cash from operating to pay for those projects. And then we have special projects, things that come up that we have to get done. And some of the special projects may be in the decade plan. It may be something we're going to do 10 years from now. And we moved that up to currently because an interceptor collapsed or something we have to fix right away. Normally, if you did decade plan, you would probably move $10 million of a project that you currently have planned. You may move that back 10 years to fill that void like you would do in your own personal budget. But there are times that both those type of things are very important to do. So we borrow some more money at the time to do those projects. We redo it every 2 years. So basically what happens is we adjust the plan, but we really rely on the first 2 years of that plan to do our finance plan. But things always in flux and always in motion. It's just a plan. It's what we think we need to spend money on our capital projects, but things happen and things change and things get shifted. So that kind of happens along with as part of our planning process. Probably takes into effect everything. We also do what we call asset management. I think we had a meeting on asset management. We talked about Maximo. Maximo is our work order system. It generates work orders and allows us to capture everything we do on an asset. So when we fix an asset, we do a work order on it. It tracks our labor hours. It tracks all the cost for all the parts of the equipment and everything else, and we take pictures of it and we load it. And what it does on the back end, it tells us, for instance, we may think we need to replace a reservoir for $10 million, but through asset management and all the work orders, it says it's only costing you maybe $5,000 a year at this point in time to maintain that asset. And basically, as through the life of that asset, we believe that asset will start deteriorating 10 years from now or 15 years from now, and then maybe we have to rehab it. So if that's on our plan to rehab now, but we're not spending hardly any money taking care of it now, we can actually shift some of our projects around. That. Why spend $10 million on an asset that does not need to be replaced? So it's taking it in effect. So that's our asset management plan. It's very in depth. We do a lot. There's the work order system is very intuitive. We have a SCADA system that basically controls our wastewater and water systems. As items break down our system, those systems will be sending data to our maximum work order system and telling our operators that those things are breaking down. Another thing we're going to do in the future too is AI. So we're going to take a look at and see if we can actually artificial intelligence and use some of that data to kind of project, look at things where we might actually have more leaks in an area, more collapses. Data telling us that there might be a leak in this area because something's happening. The pressure is kind of changing in this area. Allow us to go out and do certain things. So that's kind of what we do during the budget process. That's presented to the board at the April meeting for mayor approval. I usually present the budget to the TCAC in April as well before I present it to the board. Because of the pandemic, that didn't happen, but I'm presenting it to you before final actions taken to the board in a couple weeks. Any questions so far? Okay. So no, go back to the slide. So in the operating budget, expenses include items such as wages and benefits, which we talked about, our operating costs, which also include power, chemicals, all the supplies. We have indirect costs in there, which is like our workers' comp, our tort claims, and transfer to the fund. So I transfer money to the debt service fund to pay for debt service, and transfer money to the CIP to pay for capital. Now, one of the things I just want you to be aware of is that a few years back, we looked at to see what we needed to spend on capital, and we tried to flatten that amount out. So years ago, we were spending about $33 million a year on our CIP. We determined that we need to spend much more than that. So we had some rate increases so we could do that. We've done a lot of different things, but what we decided to do is the board approved it is every year we add $3 million to the transfer to capital. So we started like at $33 million. The next year we went to 36, then we went to 9, 2, and then there was a point in time where we said that we would stop that. Now, in my finance, in the plan, I never stop it. I continue to increase the amount of cash that goes to capital. At some point in time, it may flatten out and we may get some more money as we pay off our debt service, but we'll also have those projects for Water 2120. So those for our water resource strategy. So we may, instead of putting it in for a basic program, we may just put that cash in to pay for capital programs for Water 2120. But at no time, we talk about we're going to stop that, but when I do the planning, I never stop the increase. This year, you'll notice when we get the capital budget, it's $71 million. I continue to increase the amount I transfer. We put a policy in place that at least 50% of our capital we spend a year has to come from cash at a minimum. We do much, or at a maximum, I'm sorry, we do much less than that, or much more. I'm sorry, we do much more than that. We actually probably spend right now probably upwards of 68, 70% of our capital programs in any particular year from cash, and the rest is from debt service on the basic program. So every year when I increase the $3 million go to capital, that's by using cash, not debt service. Just want to make that point as well. You can go to the next slide, please. So our capital funds, I talked a lot about that. We have programs, which are the projects. Projects be water line replacement, sewer line replacement, a multitude of a lot of different stuff. Revenue sources come from the debt financing, which I talked about, transfer from the operating revenue, and then we also generate utility expansion charges. So as people connect to the system, they have to pay a UEC, and we use that revenue only for growth-related items. So we either pay back developers that built infrastructure for us and gave it to us, and as people connect in that service area, we reimburse the developer, or we use those things for growth-related items, primarily those growth-related items that we use it for internally or for our IT or information technology type projects. So there's appropriations in there. We have cash coming in, and an encumbrance is a commitment to spend money. So let's just say that you think about in a year, your house payment. So I have enough money in the budget for a year's worth of house payments. And each month I pay cash for that project. There's also an encumbrance against that project. It is saying that the extra cash I have in the bank is committed to pay up to whatever that amount is for that project or that house payment. So let's just say you had $120,000 worth of house payments in a year, and it was $10,000 a month. In January, I would book cash of $10,000, and I would have an encumbrance of $110,000. That means that $110,000, I cannot spend it on anything else. It is encumbered against that project. It's committed against our project, and I'm not allowed to spend that on anything else. So that's what we do with all our CIP money. We encumber it against projects. Now, as we keep every year as we look at things, we de-encumber amounts and encumber them against other amounts. But we take all our money and we commit it against projects, and it's not allowed to be just spent whatever. So that's what an encumbrance is. You guys probably I'm telling you more than you ever wanted to know. Next slide. The debt service fund, those are expenses to pay for debt service payments, and basically that's what it's used for. And then I can transfer that money UECs to CIP projects. The water resources charge that I talked about a little bit, those revenues also go into this fund, and I transfer those revenues into CIP accounts that are related to our water resource for the Water 2120 strategy. Slide. I'll move on a little quicker. Budget assumptions for FY21. Basically, I had nominal growth in the service area, so really no growth. I used consumption levels from FY19 of 121 gallons per person per day. It includes a 2.7% increase in wages, which is 2% raise for employees, which was mandated by union contracts that was negotiated a year ago, and about 0.7% in basically benefits. 4.4 million increase in the transfer to capital and debt service funds. So as you remember, I said every year I'm increasing how much we spend in capital by $3 million a year. Part of that 4.4 million is 3 million to pay for that increase. That increase is paid by cash, not debt service. And the other $1.4 million was increase in debt service payments to pay for financing that we just completed. I can't see this. And then again, we have the continued increase in capital spending based on the decade plan, and we do not propose a rate increase during this budget cycle. So I talked about the 2% step adjustment for the employees. We have a rate reserve fund. It's fully funded by $9 million as mandated by the rate ordinance. This fund is what I use to, in case of fluctuations in revenue. So any particular time if something happens in the economy like 2011 and everything's just started tanking, I can use money from this fund to offset revenues that may be depleted based on what's going on without going to the public and asking for a rate increase. So that is now funded $9 million. We spent $2 million a year to fund at that level, and that is fully funded. Upgrades, we're doing upgrades next year to One Solution. One Solution is our financial system. We're redoing our SCADA system, which controls our water and sewer systems, and we'll be doing that over the next 8 years. It's going to be a pretty long and contentious project. Next slide, please. We do spend a lot of money, especially in our CIP, on cybersecurity. We do have a cybersecurity officer in place. We have put a lot of protections in our firewalls, in our system. We have pulled most of our applications out of the cloud. They are in our own hard drives behind our own firewall. So we have done a lot of work and strategies and spent money on CIP to keep our system safe. Develop an asset management strategic plan, which we talked about when I talked about Maximo. We're probably about 2/3 away from that, but we still have quite a bit of work ahead of us. But by doing this, we'll be one of the few utilities in the country that will have this in place. And as of now, we're probably one of a handful that is at a level where we're at, and it's we get asked a lot of questions across the country about how we're doing this and what we're doing. It's pretty impressive. We will continue to look at Water 2120, and we'll look at the CIP projects. We will increase our public outreach programs. I don't know, many of you know that. There's an increase in this year's budget of about $300,000. We actually help customers who cannot pay their bills. We help low-income customers who meet certain HUD guidelines and give them discounts on their bills. If someone has cancer or something in their family, or maybe COVID or something, and they're out of work and they can't pay their bills for their water, we have a water assistance fund that we use, and we help our customers get through rough times. We have this on our bills as well, so it's kind of like the Good Neighbor Fund with PNM. We use money donated by our customers, as well as money we appropriate internally to do that as well. We also partner with PNM, New Mexico Gas Company, a variety of other ones. Two companies that really help us is the Roadrunner Food Bank. Roadrunner Food Bank, and there's two different food banks, and they help us work on that. We're also in the middle of a redesign of our Water Authority website, which will include a customer portal. That portal will allow customers who's on automatic meter infrastructure to look at their water consumption in their house, do a lot of different things online, and interact with our staff and stuff through this website. We were going to do some of this through our customer conversations and bring customers in, but COVID kind of hampered that little project degree. So, but that's what that is. Slide. So this is our general fund expenses. We told our total expenditures in our general fund is $237 million. $81.8 million from debt service. Our wages and benefits for our employees is $60.8 million. Our operating expenses are $58 million. A big chunk of that would be power and chemicals. And transfer to other funds is $33.6 million. That would be what we're transferring to CIP, basically, to pay for those capital projects. Next slide. This is our revenues. So we anticipate generating $127.8 million in water revenue, $92.5 million in wastewater, miscellaneous expenses. Those are type of things as connections. We sell compost, so we take much from our treatment plant, take it out to the west side, we mix it with some other stuff, and we create a compost that a lot of people use. The New Mexico Department of Transportation uses that for a lot of the road work. And then we're going to, the working capital balance is how it's really calculated. It's the balance of money left over after you take revenues less expenditures. So right now our working capital balance at 2020 will be $53 million. So of that $53 million, I'm taking 11.3 million of it. I'll pay for the revenues for FY21, and that's why we don't have a rate increase in FY21. There's no need for it. It'll still leave me a balance of about $39 million in our working capital balance. These revenues are based upon last year's revenues. I can tell you this year, through April, we have sold almost 1 billion gallons of water more than we did last fiscal year. During the last 2 months, during the pandemic, we have actually sold almost 400 million gallons more water than we did at the same period of last year. So this pandemic is basically people are at home doing their yards, probably washing our hands more, whatever. They have used a lot more water than we did last year. So our revenues will probably exceed what I projected them to be for this year. So that again will also add to our fund balance. And it probably tells me that for FY21, my revenues here are probably understated. But again, it's just the plan, and we'll just see how that kind of pans out. But that's how we were going to cover the expenditures with revenue in this next fiscal year. Slide. CIP appropriations. We're going to appropriate additional $71.6 million in projects. $61 million of that's from the basic program. So again, of the basic program, $33 million is coming over from cash transfer. The remaining is from debt service. And as you can tell, I continue to increase the transfer every year, so it's more cash and less debt service. We have a couple things that we always work on is $2 million for our AMI project. 50% of our service area is built out as for AMI. AMI is automatic meter infrastructure. We have 7 towers up across service area. We put in these AMIs, we ping your meter, and that's how we read the meter. So we don't have as many guys going out reading meters manually anymore. We can actually tell people when they have a leak. We ping your meter every hour on AMI. If you have a lot of flow of water in the middle of the night, you probably have a leak, and we send you information telling you that you probably have a leak in your property. We do $2 million every year for this project, and we have probably a few million sitting in there, and we're gonna build out, I think, additional 8,000 meters this year across the service area. We're going to do $11 million on our sewer lines. Some of our sewer lines are old. The concrete is worn away. It's held up by dirt. We know where those are. We TV them, so we're going to add a little bit of money this year to take care of some of those projects. And then we always do $1 million, or we start doing $1 million or more to replace all our vehicles and heavy equipment. It's some very expensive equipment. We had not taken care of that over the last several years, so we started adding more money to take care of that equipment. I don't know if you've ever seen those big trucks. They're called Vactors. They're like a big round truck. They stick a big pipe down into a sewer line. Those things run about $450,000 a truck. So they're pretty expensive. And then we have $4 million like we talked about for some of those IT projects and development agreements that we're working on. Slide. So this is our CIP spending. So that little line down the center is our cash transfer. I show in 2026 that it's going to be the last year where we do the increase and we hold it flat. I have not really done that in the finance plan, but we just did that because that was what we agreed upon with the board. As you can see, as that line goes up, the spending for all our projects increase at the same clip. So we're looking at in 2026 spending upwards to over $80 million a year in our basic capital projects. And then there'll be some other special projects. There'll be Water 2120 projects. And next year's budget, I'll start adding and showing the Water 2120 projects. So that spending is going to increase quite dramatically, adding the two. But as you can see, we started off in 2014 at about 44 million. So you can see a pretty quick increase. The spikes in 17, 18 was some work we did on our water reclamation plant for sewer, the sewer plant. Some things we had to get done, so we had a little spike there. But our plan is to continue to spend more, and we know projects will cost more. We know the cost of projects will cost more, and but we also know that as we start paying off debt service, that I can use some of that money as well, transfer to pay for these projects and not have to have a rate increase. So I really spend we really spend a lot of time in looking at when we need to have rate increases and when we don't, and we just don't do them just to do them. So we know it creates a burden on the public, creates a burden on a sector that they have less income than others, and a burden on our older customers that are on a fixed income. So we take a serious approach about when and how we do rate increases. Next slide. Future challenges, increased conservation. So we had that issue from 2018 to 2019, and obviously revenues dropped off in 2019. It's not really been the same impact this fiscal year. I don't know if people got used to the rate increase or, but something we need to continue to do improvements to our sewer facility, continue to look at reduced system water loss, make sure we don't have pipes that are leaking and we're losing water ourselves. The finance asset management plan, which is investing in our infrastructure, which we talked a lot about. We're always looking at the increased cost of power and chemicals. Power and chemicals probably makes up 40% of our operating expenditures. It takes a lot of chemicals to run our water treatment plant. There's a lot of chemicals to treat our wastewater, and takes a lot of power. But if you do notice, if you ever drive by our water treatment plant, San Juan Chalma plant, there's a lot of solar array panels up out there now. So we are always looking at creating efficiencies with power and using solar power. We use a lot of gases from our digesters at the wastewater plant, and we run generators off that gas, so we don't have to take gas off from P&M. So we look at a lot of ourselves internally to just look for savings in power, just becoming more effective in what we do. And we always look at increased operating efficiencies, reduce operating expenses. If we can do things from a systematic perspective and not hire extra FTEs because of that, we will continue to do that. And we have done a lot of that over the last several years. And I think that ends that. And I have any questions if you have any questions. But it's $10 an answer.
Well, I got
You have to generate revenue.
I've got $20 in my pocket. This is Ron. On your meters, when is that going to be completed? How many more years for complete 100% change out?
I say maybe 5 years. What we were doing for a while is we were doing the meters with a contractor. As we start putting those meters, are the guys that used to read the meters, they're now becoming utility technicians. We put them in our programs, so now we're training them a lot so they can replace or repair water leaks and those type of things. So we're now installing a lot of these things ourselves. So all the cost we incur now is just the piece of equipment. Before we had to buy equipment, and we had to pay for someone to put it in. We're just buying the equipment. So again, we're back. All our large meters, which generates probably half of our revenue, are on AMI. Everything that's larger than a 2-inch meter is all AMI now. We've all converted all those. So what we're talking about is primarily residential meters, and where we're at is like in the Northeast Heights and older parts of Northeast Heights, they have cans. Meters are in cans that sit in your yard. We were talking about taking the cans out of the yards and putting in the right of way, putting the sidewalks in a box. But now we figured out how to put dirt on top of the lid in the cans. So we're not going to change out the cans. We're going to leave the cans in. So we've learned a lot. So we're spending less money and we're doing a lot more. So, as fast as our guys can put them in, we're putting them in, but they're going in pretty fast now.
Okay, my meter is 10 years old. I'm an original AMI. I'm in a new development out west. if it take another 5 years, my meter's going to be about 18 years old, 17, 18 years old.
Still young meter.
Boy, unless things have changed a lot, I disagree with you.
Yeah.
What, do you take them in periodically and test them? Do you?
If you think it's right, I mean, the benefit is for you, not for us. A meter will run slow. It won't run fast.
Absolutely.
So that's where we have to make sure we look at meters, but there's no effect to you per se. So where do you live on the west side?
Petroglyphs. Past Unser and Ladera.
You're not on AMI meter?
Yes, I am. I've been on AMI from the beginning.
Yeah, you're probably not going to happen. Anything's going to happen until that probably the ARC battery runs out, which is probably 20 years. So they'll probably end up fixing that in 20 years. We normally don't just change out meters.
Right. Are you having?
And part of it is because you're on AMI, we can watch the flow. So we do a lot of what do you call it? What would an engineer call it? You take a lot of data. What do you call that process?
Swag.
Swag or data quality. So anyways, they evaluate a lot of that data and determine if meters are, and we do that all systematically. So there is a point in time where we would think that it is, and we pull it out and test.
Unless things have changed drastically, a 20-year
These stuff is pretty amazing, man.
A 20-year meter is going to lose about 15%.
No, I don't think so. I disagree with that.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, so Liz is right. Part of the beauty of AMI is we can monitor that data, but yeah, I mean, the battery in that ERT's probably going to die before that meter goes bad. Those meters are pretty phenomenal anymore.
So when a battery goes, you replace the whole meter?
No. I'm just saying you have to go do something with that meter because the ERT's going to die.
Okay.
We probably just go and change the whole thing out. So.
All right. Thank you.
Yep.
I have a question for you, Stan.
No, CDM can't have the job, man.
That wasn't the question, but
that's all right.
It's okay. I appreciate the friendly teasing. The UEC charges, are there limitations on what you can use that revenue for?
Yes. So only used for growth-related projects. So most of our growth-related projects are IT projects. And then a big chunk of that we use for, so we have a policy, and I don't know if you all know about this policy, so I'll just explain it real quick. It's called no net expense. So anything that's developed outside our existing service area, there has to be an agreement between us and the developer. And that agreement basically is that all the water infrastructure that has to be built out for that area has to be built at no expense, no net expense to the water authority. So that means the developer has to pay for all that infrastructure. So we do those agreements, and there's a couple of ways these agreements kind of come out. So we had a developer to build the boulders out on the west side, up on top, kind of where Ron lives. And he decided that he put in all the infrastructure, he gave us the infrastructure and was done. And then he said, you guys can keep the UECs. So the UECs come in and we use it for like IT projects, whatever, or growth related projects. And I guess he increased the price of the houses he sold. Someone like Mesa del Sol, we had development agreements with them. And in those agreements, the way it's stipulated is they put in all the infrastructure, and when they finish the infrastructure, they gave us the infrastructure. It becomes our asset. And as customers connect to the system in that area and we track it, we collect the UECs and we send those UECs back to the developer. So the developer then has to wait years to get reimbursed. Now what's kind of happening with some developers is that they're working with the county or the city and are doing what's the PIDs and TIDs. So they're development agreements based off interest. So what will happen in those instances is that as they get in money from the county and the city, they'll give it to the developer, and then we will give the money to the county or city when someone in that area connects. But our development agreements basically says, we're not, you built the infrastructure, we're not going to pay for it. Now, if we were to pay for the infrastructure, we would use UEC revenue to pay for it. But we don't do that anymore because we changed the agreement and said, you know what? You want to build something, you pay for it, and you give us the assets. So, and that includes the lines, the reservoirs, the pump stations, a lot of those things now too, especially on the west side, is you have to put in reuse facilities. They have to pay for those reuse facilities and give us those assets when they finish building and putting them into the ground.
Have you guys had any issues with developers balking at doing or accommodating the no net increase?
Oh, sure. I mean, Santolina, I mean, that's a battle, but they're going to pay for it. I mean, it is our policy. It is policy mandated by it's an ordinance, is mandated by the board, and we follow it. And there's a lot of legal stuff, but Santolina guys, those guys have put in a lot of infrastructure out by, they put in a line going up the road on University, going into Mesa del Sol. There's a reservoir out there. So all of that stuff they built for future growth, but they've turned those assets over to us. And I believe so what you'll see on our CAFR, there's a section of the CAFR where it's called capital infrastructure. So everybody thinks that's what we're spending on CIP. Those are things that's been given to us by developers when they finish, and I just add that capital to our financials. But I believe we just added like $3.5 million of infrastructure they put in, and we didn't pay for it. They paid for it, and then they'll get reimbursed when someone connects to the system. So.
Okay.
Only for those areas outside our existing service area. If it's inside our service area, then we'll go ahead and we'll run the lines and stuff and put that stuff in, and then we'll charge UEC, and then we probably take that UEC money to pay for that.
Okay. Cool. Thanks, Stan.
And we're using a lot of water because we're having to run our dishwashers all the time. I've never run mine this much in my life.
That's probably true. Don't get low. I'm the finance guy, so don't get the low efficiency stuff, man. Just go high end, man. Get the high toilets, man. Just do it in, man.
Get a washing machine from the 1960s.
Oh, yeah, use them, man. That's fine, man. That's good. Good stuff.
It's not good PR for you. Anyone else have any questions?
Catherine, you ask.
I have a question.
Okay.
It's kind of maybe a little off topic, but maybe Stan, you can answer this. Have there been anything? Have you guys identified any low-income users or customers that maybe you were able to help during this time?
Yeah, well, we did a couple things. We turned everybody's water back on. We turned off the late fees. So we're not charging during this period of time. We're not going to charge anybody a late fee either for non-payment. And we're not going to turn off your water for non-payment. And those people that we turned off their waters for non-payment, we turned the water back on. So we did that. We're always, we do a lot of, especially with PNM, we do these little breakout where people can come in and talk to us. But every single time we reach out to somebody to get ready to turn off their water, we ask them, give them the ability to do the water assistance fund, the low income credit. We'll also allow somebody to get the water assistance fund. You cannot get low income credit if you're in arrears. But we'll allow you to get a water assistance payment from us to get you back current, so then you can qualify for the low income credit. Before, we just never get guys on low income credit, and they weren't making enough money to pay for that stuff, but they were in arrears, and we wouldn't let them do it because they owed us money. Now we'll use some of the water assistance fund to get them out of arrears, and then we'll let them get on the credit. So those numbers, and we can share that at the next meeting, have grown quite substantially over the last several months.
Okay, thank
Do
you.
a little thing about the growth of the program.
Thank you so much.
It works really well. We actually had to add money this year to the budget. I did a mid-year appropriation to this year's budget to add money to it because we were spending all the money we had on the program. And the board happily approved that appropriation. It's still in place. I think it's sufficient, but it is growing. And I don't know if we ever talked about these programs to the TCAC, but if it's something you all want to hear again, my customer service manager and my treasurer can definitely get on and talk with you guys about it because it's pretty exciting. It's pretty impressive what we did.
Any other questions?
Just a really quick one. This is Janie. Stan, so the
No.
thanks. Now it's an easy one. So the number of accounts that you would, on average have turned off for lack of payment, how big is that in terms of the impacts this year in more water being used or not?
There has been really no impact. It's just increased a little bit. Only 1% or less of our accounts are in arrears.
Okay.
And we have 220,000 accounts, so
That's pretty minimal. Yeah.
Pretty minimal. Yeah.
Okay. Thanks.
Any other
Tess
questions?
has a question.
I had a question. This is Erwin. I don't see it anywhere mentioned, and this is not normal for me. To service your debt, you have, it's called Moody's, I think, or whatever. Is that, has it gone up, or what is your rating, or is your costs are increasing or decreasing to borrow money?
So we just borrowed 86 million. I'll answer it two ways. So we just borrowed $86 million, and we closed on that loan 2 months ago. I take anybody, what's your guess what the interest rate was? 86 million. What do we pay for interest on a 12-year note?
1.7.
Huh?
1.7.
3%.
1.47%. It's because we have a AAA bond rating with S&P. We have a AA plus bond rating with Moody's. Moody's is a little bit hard to get an increase with because they treat us like we're a municipality, and we're not a municipality. We don't raise revenue through taxes and stuff. We do it through revenue, but they look at us as if we're a municipality, and they probably want me to have upwards to 1,400 days of cash in the bank. And we're just not going to do that. If I had 1,400 days of cash in the bank and raised the rates to this public, it wasn't taking care of the infrastructure, that would probably not look very good. So we have cash, we use the cash to pay for our infrastructure, and that's what we do. So we're not going to put $300 million of cash in the bank to get a AAA bond rating. So we're not going to get. So basically, in my mind is if I start getting AAA bond rating with Moody's, then I'm failing at my job. But we do have a AAA with S&P. S&P looks at a lot of social impacts as well. We do the Water Assistance Fund, low income credit. So we rate at the highest for them is what we do for our community. That our rates are some of the lowest in this region, and we maintain high levels in financial metrics. And to be able to do both of those, they think very, very highly of us. So we're taking 2 loans and that's coming for their board's approval in a couple of weeks. We have 2011 and 2013 loans. They were at 5% interest. We're going to refinance those, and those will probably get refinanced at about 2.2% or lower. So we'll have substantial savings from those as well.
Thank you. That's great. Thanks for answering that.
Any other questions for Stan?
This is Tess. I had a quick question about reconciling the water conservation and how that decreases revenue with the water utility goals of increasing conservation, and maybe how you project for that in your planning, or how you reconcile those two things.
I always project for decreases in consumption. I look at our GCPD. It's always based upon that. Not as anti-conservation as it sounds. I'm trying to be funny, but I always look at, I think conservation was a little bit more last year than when we anticipated it. We pushed it pretty hard, and we had quite a drop off of revenue last year. I think primarily we just had a rate increase and people were reacting to it. Again, the rates are not very high, so you're not paying that much for water. So this last fiscal year, I see people using more water. All year long, they have to use more water. And water's still fairly cheap. Well, the rates are built in such a way to promote conservation between the commodity and the base rate. And we charge the surcharges if you use too much water. So we're always going to look at, and we'll always plan for decreases in consumption. And the plan is based upon, theoretically the plan is just flat as we have growth, but the growth is offset by conservation. So. And John Stomp said I should watch out for Deborah, but she didn't ask the question yet. I feel safe. My buddy in arms, man, John Stomp. I'm gonna cry when he retires.
First meeting. It's my first meeting. I would have asked John a question, but I'm not going to pick on you.
Okay. And I'm going to miss John. So, anyways.
Any more questions? Okay, thank you so much, Stan.
You're welcome.
And I think that's an interesting idea to have the customer service people come and give us a presentation.
Okay. Yeah, we can do a lot of different things. I'll give this back to Liz.
Okay. I'm back.
Hey. Oh. Do we have any members of the public online, Liz, for public comment?
We do not. This meeting is being streamed so the public can view it, but there's not an opportunity to speak during the meeting. They were provided the opportunity for public comment. So if you want to go ahead and read that section of the agenda, there's a notice about the public comment and the streaming. It's just at the very beginning of the agenda that I gave you under the call to order. I want to make sure you get it, because it's regarding the public.
I just got the agenda that went to everyone.
Oh, okay. I can read it.
Okay.
It says, so for under public comment, it says, as posted on our website and noted on our published Water Authority agenda, this meeting has special procedures given the governor's declaration of a public health emergency and a ban on gatherings of more than 5 people. Therefore, this meeting is being held via remote or via video conference. This will be the first, so please bear with us now that we're here at the end. Oh, and meetings of the public, Water Authority staff, and the media have the ability to view this meeting live through their different platforms, GovTV, on Comcast Channel 16, and the GovTV website. These live streams can be accessed from most smartphones, tablets, or computers. For those watching on the live stream, thank you for joining us. The video recording of this and all past Water Authority meetings will also remain available for viewing at any time on the Water Authority website. Water Authority staff is available via telephone. If members of the public need assistance finding the videos online, please call 289-3100 for assistance during business hours, which are Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. The Water Authority accepted general comment and comment on the meeting specific agenda items in written form via email through 3 p.m. today, and these comments were distributed to all the board members.
Thank you, Liz.
So, yeah.
One thing okay, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was just going to say that you should have received those comments via email, so that covers the public comment item.
Thank you for forwarding those.
Yeah.
I just wanted to take a minute to give kudos to the Water Authority for the deliveries to the Navajo Nation.
Thank you.
It was a great thing to see, helping out other communities in New Mexico during this time period.
Yeah, thank you.
Any other comments before we adjourn? Any announcements? Okay, everyone be safe and keep washing your hands. Stan likes that.
Keep using your dishwasher.
You're running that dishwasher.
And thanks to our new members for joining us, and we will see you next month, correct, Liz?
Yes, I do believe we'll have a meeting. We'll be sending out more information about that. We'll see. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much, everyone.
Have a good evening.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks. Bye-bye.